Hi everyone, today we are getting into audio editing. When I start my YouTube journey, I used to be confused about audio effects, what they are and how to use them. In this tutorial, I sort everything out in a clear way. I will explain why we edit audio and guide you through simple steps to get started. Make sure to watch my previous video on the mechanism of sound. It will help you grasp today's topic more effectively. Let's talk about the reason for editing audio. First, we need to ask ourselves why we want audio to change in the first place. We can distinguish the editing process into two categories: corrective audio editing, creative audio editing. The main difference between the first and second categories lies in their purpose. Corrective audio editing is the process of solving problems that may have occurred during the recording stage. Its aim is to address issues and achieve the best possible version of an audio recording. This includes tasks like removing background noise, fixing pitch, and addressing any imperfection in the original recording. On the other hand, creative audio editing involves transforming an audio part into something new. The intent here is to go beyond just fixing problems and explore artistic possibilities. This involves adding effects such as reverb, delay, and Autotune to craft a unique and artistic audio piece. Then corrective audio editing can subdivide it into two steps: premix and mix. Premix is a step where individual tracks are prepared. Some people would explain this part as trimming audio. If we compare it to cooking, it's like preparing the ingredients. Typical tasks include removing background noise and basic editing technique like cutting, pasting, and moving. For instance, I use Adobe Audition for editing audio. Here, I can perform basic action like cut, copy, paste, and move audio. One of my favorite features in Adobe Audition is the spot healing brush tool, which I use to eliminate pop or tick sounds. The auto and it works pretty well. So these processes are example of the premix step. Another example of a premix process is phase in and phase out. Speaking of phase, there are differences between phase and crossphase. Phase controls the volume of a single audio clip, either at the beginning or end, while crossphase are used to transition smoothly between two overlapping audio clips. Both phase and crossphase can have curves, just like a keyframe graph, linear curve and Bezier curve. Similarly, in Premiere Pro, we have three types of phase curves: linear phase, logarithmic phase, and exponential phase. The constant gain phase changes audio at a constant rate in and out as it transitions between clips. The graph shows the linear relationship. I know sounds really fancy and all, but it's simply we are making phase based on the graph. So for the linear phase would looks like this. Constant power phase is basically a logarithmic graph pattern of phase, so the sounds will travel based on this pattern. Exponential phase, again, here is a graph. This is really just a good to know part because we only think of phase as a linear, but this is part just showing that there are more options. So far, all the content we have covered falls under the premix process. Now is the time for the mixing process. The mixing step is where you add major effects like EQ or compressor. If we compare it to cooking, it's like putting all the ingredients together and tasting the flavor. EQ and compressor play the role of balancing, similar to salt and pepper. In audio editing, EQ or equalizer is used to tweak frequency. An example of this is a Pamametric Equalizer. On the other hand, a compressor is used to adjust amplitude or volume. Examples include the hard limiters and multiband compressor. So we can summarize it like this. EQ is for frequency edit and compressor is for volume edit. Keep in mind that the relationship between the wave's amplitude and frequency is inversely proportional to each other. As frequency increase, amplitude decrease. As frequency decrease, amplitude increase. If you change the frequency, the amplitude will be affected by it. So let's talk about EQ and compressors in more detail. Human can detect sounds in a frequency range from about 20 Hz to 20 kHz, measuring in Hz, which is equal to cycle per second. EQ or equalizer is a tool in audio processing that adjusts the balance of different frequency in sound. It allows you to enhance or reduce specific frequency range to shape the overall tonal quality. Even though we hear just one sound, it's made up of different frequencies. Imagine it like this. When you see a wave in a video, it's not just one wave. It's a bunch of waves working together to create the sound you hear. In my last video, I talk about how sound happens because of changes in pressure. So even if you only see one wave, know that it's a mix of many waves coming together to make the sounds we hear. The primary purpose of using EQ is to make small adjustments to refine and fine-tune the production. EQ has two types of shapes or graphs in Adobe Premiere Pro. Filter shape. Filter shape can also subdivide into high-pass or low-pass filters. High-pass filters allow high frequency to pass through while attenuating low frequencies. Low-pass filters do the opposite, allowing low frequency to pass through while attenuating high frequencies. Bell shape selects the center frequency with other frequency on either side of being adjusted, mostly used in the middle frequency spectrum. We can also control the actual width of the bell, the specific shape of that bell, with this little bottom number right here, which is called Q control or Q factor. If we increase, it gets narrower. If we decrease, it gets more width to the frequency. To learn more about EQ, I highly recommend watching this video. This YouTuber demonstrates how each frequency range influences the sound. I've included a link in the comment section. In audio processing, a compressor tightens the range of sound levels by reducing loud parts and boosting quiet parts, making the volume more consistent. A common example of a compressor is a hard limiter. Let's focusing on two aspects, maximum amplitude and input boost. The maximum amplitude determines the volume of the loudest sound, acting like a lid on a frying pan containing popping popcorn. It restrains the sound. Input boost is like adding oil to the popcorn. It raises the overall volume. Imagine the lowest popcorn jump is at minus 20 decibel, and with a gain of 1 decibel, it increased to minus 19 decibel. This change affects all sounds, creating a dynamic range. In music, we prefer a wide dynamic range for each instrument, sometimes quiet and sometimes louder. We want the music to have spontaneous and interesting shifts in sound. However, with a voice, it's like one instrument. We might want to normalize the volume to maintain a consistent sound while you're speaking. This is where a compressor comes in. It helps you control the dynamic range, ensuring a more constant volume. That's the role of compressor. A multi-band compressor is interesting because it's not only adjusts amplitude but also affects frequency. In fact, it divides the audio signal into 4 bands. Each frequency band is then compressed independently, offering more precise control over the dynamic range of different parts of the audio spectrum.
Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, where shadows waltz to our spells. Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, where shadows waltz to our spells, and the night shares its secrets. I am the guardian of ancient enchantments, and the sorceress of the arcane. But to me, the witch of the golden grove. Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, where shadows waltz to our spells, and the night shares its secrets. I am the guardian of ancient enchantments, and the sorceress of the arcane. They call me the Witch of the Golden Grove. Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, where shadows waltz to our spells, and the night shares its secrets. I am the guardian of ancient enchantments, and the sorceress of the arcane. They call me the Witch of the Golden Grove. Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, where shadows waltz to our spells, and the night shares its secrets. I am the guardian of ancient enchantments, and the sorceress of the arcane. They call me the Witch of the Golden Grove.
Remember, there is an inverse relationship between volume and frequency. Changing the volume affects the frequency, influencing tonality. Feel free to customize it as you like. Discovering the sounds that fit you is crucial. You can also use these presets, they work well too. Finally, there's a creative audio editing. From here, we brings perfect audio and makes it weird. To explain it in terms of cooking, it's like making fusion food, something like sushi pizza. Creative audio editing can be represented by 2 effects, delay and reverb. However, I also add Autotune since it is the most popular choice for creative audio. Reverb makes it sound like the sound is bouncing off walls in a room. It gives a feeling of being in a specific space and adds a sense of atmosphere. This is reverb. Delay makes the sounds repeat after a short time, creating echoes. It produces a clear, separate repetition of the sound. This is a delay. Autotune is a pitch correction tool that automatically adjusts the pitch of a vocal performance. This is Autotune. Usually, we mix these 3 effects to make sushi pizza.
Reverb, delay, Autotune, sushi pizza.
In Premiere Pro, we have the Essential Sound panel, which makes audio editing much easier. We can tag the audio type by selecting from dialogue, music, sound effect, or ambience in the Essential Sound panel. Dialogue is a spoken word, or conversation between characters in a film, video, or audio recording. Basically, it's me. Hi. Musical involves any musical elements like a background music and songs. Sound effects are non-musical sounds that enhance the auditory experience, including things like footsteps, door cracks, or even this sound. Ambient encompasses background sounds that sets the atmosphere or mood, such as environmental sounds, room tone, or outdoor noise. If we choose dialogue, we can basically see what we learned today. The Essential Sounds panel serves as an all-in-one tool. If we select music, we can access features like duration and docking. Adjusting the duration essentially involves remixing the music. For example, a 30-second song can be transformed into 20-second version. Docking automatically lowers the volume of one audio track when another track is playing. Here is how it works. First, we need to know the original volume of the song. For example, this song is -1 decibel. And now, if I want to make the volume down to about -20 decibel, then I need to set the docking amount at -19 decibel. That would make a total of -20 decibel. As soon as the dialogue finishes, the volume returns to its original amplitude, which is -1 decibel. To reduce the volume, you have to do it in a keyframe. If you reduce the clip volume, the entire audio clip, including the selected docking amount, will also decrease. For example, if I reduce the clip volume to -6 decibel, the music docking parts, originally at -20 decibel, will be adjusted to -26 decibel. So be careful about this. We all experience watching an orchestra performance at least once. Various instruments like the violin and cello play together. Have you ever noticed something? No matter where you go, the position of all the instruments are almost identical. So why is that? This is because instrument positions are arranged for a balanced and cohesive sound. Each instrument has a unique frequency and amplitude. This optimization of the spatial distribution of sound is why positions are fixed for a harmonious blend. Similarly, when we edit audio, we also need to consider where we want to position our audio. I think this picture really summarizes today's lesson. Oops, I didn't explain pan. It's simple. You can choose the sounds to be on the left or right, like this. Left, 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 right, right, right. Let's say your voice is set to -6 decibel and your music is at -18 decibel. It will look like this and also sounds like this. If you are wondering what these settings sounds like, check out my keyframe video where I set my voice and music based on these levels. But recently I prefer the sound set like this. Voice at -10 decibel and music at -20 decibel. I find these settings more suitable for YouTube videos. In fact, this video is also set to these levels. In conclusion, when putting audio into video, think about this picture. It can help you edit the sounds more efficiently. Alright, that's a wrap for today's tutorials. Hopefully it helped you with your audio editing. Today's video is the final video in the Premiere Pro 101 series. If you watch all the way through, congratulations, you made it. All the things we have learned in this series are fundamental steps to make a video. I've done my best to create a step-by-step tutorial for people who are new to making videos. For more updates, check out my Premiere Pro Beyond class playlist. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.